Okay, all right, let's get rolling again. All right, now in this one, okay, here's your original data, and it says prepare a comparative analysis from the following income statement to show all percentages to one decimal rounded. All right, so in this particular case, are we doing horizontal or vertical analysis?
Don't you have this way, right?
Horizontal.
So you have to subtract them two first, make the change.
Exactly. And hang on, we need to be able to see. I need just a tiny bit more room here. There we go. Oh man. Hang on. There we go. Okay. So we subtract the $2 amount, and then we divide that difference from what column? X7 or X6? X6. Okay? So everybody get the idea here?
Wait, I missed what happened. What about this?
Okay? So the columns, the years are for year ended 20X7 to the top, 20X7 for the first column, 20X6 for the second column. So the second column in this particular case is the older year. So we subtract the 2, we get the difference, whether it be positive or negative, and then we take that dollar change and divide by the X6 number. So the year in this particular example, the column on the left is the current year, and the column on the right is last year. Okay, but again, be careful with that, because depending on which example you're looking at in the book, sometimes they flip them and they put last year's first and this year's second. Okay.
The divider is the year prior.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The year prior is the divider for the dollar percentage.
Correct. Correct. It's the prior year, but just be careful as to which column that is. Don't get into the habit of going, oh, okay, well, I get the difference and I divide by the second column.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying, okay? Because then you can get screwed up when they flip the columns, okay? So the other thing is then we have to show any increases from last year to this year as positives, any decreases from last year to this year as negatives, okay?
Okay, so say you give us for one of these that's already done, you'd be like, that's not what I was trying to say. And you'll ask a question like, was there an increase in China glassware? We can say, no. But both of them say negative.
Okay, wait a minute. China glass, okay. All right, so if we look at China glassware, last year it was 2,100, this year it was 2,000. So we reduced the total dollar
So we can say,
expense.
no, it was reduced.
Yeah, it was reduced. Okay, so it shows as a negative. Then we take that $100 negative, divide by the $2,100 from last year, and we get a reduction of 4.8%. Okay?
We need to start having group breakfasts or something.
Okay. So let's run through a couple of them. So let's start with food sales. So last year food sales was 150,800. This year it's 154,000. So we had an increase in food sales of 3,200, or a percent increase of 2.1%. So good or bad? Good. Okay. Selling more, always a good thing. All right. Last year allowances were 800. This year it was 1,000. So we had a dollar change of 200 and a percent change of 25% increase. Good or bad? I'm sorry. What's an allowance?
Isn't that extra money that we're giving to like recompensate on things?
Exactly. So if we have an increase in allowances, yeah, that's bad. That means that somebody's not happy with their food, right? Okay. So we only had a 2.1% increase in sales, we should expect a 2.1% increase in allowances. Does that make sense? Because it would be proportionate. So if we saw much, I mean, and you can see, I mean, we had like a tenfold plus increase in allowances. So again, when we see an increase in allowances of this magnitude from one year to the next, what do you think what should we do practically? Exactly. Exactly. We're gonna have to start tracking it down, because is it an issue with preparation?
Or it could be like new people working like your favorite restaurant.
Well, exactly, and that would be in the preparation area. So if we locate it, that the problem is in the preparation area, and doesn't necessarily have to do with any of our raw product that we're purchasing, because that would be a whole different scenario. If the product that we're purchasing is bad, it's not going to matter how we prepare it. That's the issue, okay? But if we find that it's in the preparation area, maybe now we need to step back and say, okay, can we track where, at what time are these allowances occurring, and who was the team that was in the kitchen? Or what were the allowances given for? Was it an appetizer? So maybe one person in the kitchen is responsible for the appetizers. Was it soups? So maybe one person is responsible for soups. You get the idea? So we can start tracking it down as to where exactly is the problem occurring, or is it just a little bit off all the way down the line, or maybe the person that's supposed to be checking all the plates before they go out, they're not checking them well enough.
Could it be like a front of house error too? Like a server, like a particular server who's constantly bringing things in wrong? Like, for example, like a steakhouse, like if they're bringing in the wrong steak temperatures, and so like.
Absolutely, it could. So if you've got a server who is consistently, because I will tell you flat out, these restaurants where you go in and they come up to your table and they have a whole list of folks sitting there at the table, and they try to do all this stuff by memory. Impressive as all get out, let me just say. But that is, you are asking for errors for front of the house orders when you do that. I think personally, you ought to let them have at least a little something that they can write with. If they can do it though, let them have it. But that's the kind of thing where you would get a lot of errors. So maybe somebody is, ordering their steak medium rare, and they're getting it medium. Got to toss that one and start over.
Right.
Well, but here's the other thing. This is the reason why all these things that you're coming up with are all valid. But here's the thing. Again, we talked about the fact that if you remember, anytime you order something from a catalog and you flip that little invoice or that packing slip over, there's like about 15 different reasons why you're returning the item. And it has to do with, was the quality, not right? Was the sizing off? Were the colors not represented right? Right? Because if you order something in a catalog and you think that it's like one color green, like a green, like what you've got on, and then it comes in the mail and it's more of like an aqua green or something like that, and it's like, well, that doesn't go with what I thought I was going to pair it up with, right? So then they can get a feel for, was the printing on the catalog incorrect versus the actual color of the garment. So in the same way, in the garment industry, you can do that in the hospitality industry. Why did the person return the item? Was it cooked properly? Was it not the right temperature? Did it, who knows, did it not have the right sides on it? That was one, I'm trying to think the other day. My husband and I went out to eat. Wasn't anything fancy at all. We just went to Showmars. And this has never happened before. Never happened before. But we're up at the counter, they're punching it into the computer as we're telling them what we want. And then when it got to the table, it was like, my husband's was not right, because it was like, yeah, I didn't have fries, I had onion rings, and mine was one of those that's like, yeah, yeah, I had not a regular salad, but a Greek salad, you know, that kind of stuff. So in that particular case, that was, they went back, pulled the ticket, and it was sort of a combination of the two. Part of it was the front house where they took the order wasn't quite right, and when it got to the back, when they put the plate together, it didn't come together right either, kind of thing. So everybody was due a little help there. But you get the idea here. And here's the first thing that I would encourage you as managers to do. Remember, we spent a whole ton of time interviewing these people, hiring these people, and everything else. And you put all your effort and energy into that, getting good people, and then if you treat them right, when you have issues like this, it's more of a team effort of, okay, let's figure out what's wrong and let's get it right? Rather than going to everybody going, oh, somebody's gonna get fired, you know? All right, so let's drop down to net revenues. So under net revenues, we had 150,000 last year and we had 153 this year. So we had an increase in net revenues, okay, of 3,000 or 2%. Here's the question. Is that expected? Is that 2% increase in net revenues expected or unexpected?
An increase in revenue is good, right? An increase in expense is bad, so either way it would be okay.
No. What I'm saying is, with the fact that we already have a 2.1% increase in overall food sales, is the increase in net revenues of 2% expected? Yes. Because if we had an increase of 2.1% in food sales, we should have a proportionate change in that revenue. So if we got 2.1 in food sales, we should see somewhere around a 2% increase in net revenues. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Look at cost of food sold. So last year we had 45,000. This year we had 48,960. So a dollar change of 39.60, but a percent increase of 8.8.
I mean, it seems like a large percent increase. Your revenue is like the dollar amount is about the same. I know that like we're looking, let's say, at percent.
Okay, so what you're saying is the 39.60 is not all that different from the 3,200?
As far as like increase.
Okay. What else though? There's one issue with that. Yes, the dollar, this is again another one of those where you can't really look at the dollar changes. You've got to look at the percent changes, because if the cost of food sold, if every time food sales goes up by 2.1% and we have an 8.8% increase in cost of food sold, eventually, if you put that on a graph, what's going to happen?
Your expenses are going to outweigh your revenue.
Exactly. If you graph that, eventually your costs are going to overtake the amount of your revenues. So, is the 8.8% good or bad? Bad. We really ought to see somewhere more like a 2% change there, a 2% increase. Okay? All right. Look at the gross profit number. We had a decrease of 960 and a decrease of 0.9. Good or bad? Bad. Why did we have a decrease? Exactly. That 8.8% increase in cost of food sold and that 25% increase in allowances killed our gross profit this year. Okay? That's what happened with the decrease. section or not. Okay. Let's see. Dropping down to the operating expense section, any of those pop out at you? I would say at least 2, maybe 3 of those ought to pop out at you.
Wait, are you at the operating?
Operating expenses, this section right here.
I would say repairs and maintenance first.
Okay, repairs and maintenance, we had a reduction of 24.5%.
Which means that more monthly we're trying to save money because we lost out on the revenues because we lost money.
Okay, we might be making up for that, but there's something else that we probably are making up for. Look one line above that. Utilities, right? So think about what's happening here. In utilities, can we control the increase in utilities?
Yes and no, like, having the automatic light shut off and
Sure.
making sure nobody run water all the time and whatnot.
Sure, we can come up with policies to make sure lights are turned off when we leave the room, computers are shut down when we leave the room, things like that. But overall, do we get to determine and influence what Duke Power is charging us? No. So if Duke Power comes up with a nice big fat increase, right, we have no control over that utilities number in that element area of it. That's why we got to get maniacal about lights off when we leave the room, computers off when we leave the room. You'd be amazed at how all these little things add up. Then something else that I'll tell you about this is personal, okay? So keep this in mind. This is personal. About a year and a half ago, I want to say it was like springtime, maybe even winter. So the point is we were not running sprinkler systems, right? Didn't have that going on. And suddenly our water bill is normally $25-ish, maybe 30. Okay? Suddenly our water bill went to $130 one month.
The water system.
Nope. Wasn't the sprinkler system.
Leak.
Where?
Where? Somewhere.
Think. Where was the leak? Where? Where? No, it wasn't pipe. Where? The flapper on one toilet was not sealing all the way. One toilet. So that toilet was sitting back in there just running. You could barely even hear it when you walked in there. It was just a tiny little drip there. Water bill went from 30 to 130. One toilet. Okay? So when you're talking about water leaks and stuff like that, that could be an explanation here as well. Yeah. So on that element of it, we can control it. So what I did, and you got to know, one of my things is I used to be in the construction industry, so I do all kinds of home improvement stuff. I completely replumbed every toilet in my house and installed the water saver floaters. So if the tank ever drains out, I only lose 2 to 3 gallons of water, and then the next time you go in to use the toilet, if you flush it, it won't flush because the tank's empty, and then you know that you have a leak. So now I will tell you, standard little floater, $3, $4, maybe $5. The water saver ones run about 15 to 20. A lot of people are like, "Get me $4." Paid for itself easily, considering that again, my water bill went up $100 in 1 month just from one toilet. Okay, so if this goes up, so if that utilities jump and we can't control control that, but we don't know what caused it, then, so then our usual response to it is, oh, we gotta find some place to cut, and repairs and maintenance are usually gonna be the place to cut. But again, we talked about this before. If we need to do that in 1 year, that might be okay. But is that gonna fly for very long, year after year? No. Because if nothing else, if everything's not working right in the bathrooms and whatnot, customers aren't gonna be happy, they're gonna stop coming, revenues drop, our business goes, we go out of business, okay? There's one other thing on here in this operating expenses group that's concerning me just a little bit.
Advertising.
What?
Advertising.
No. No. I heard it. The laundry and dry cleaning. So what in the world happened there? We had a 9% increase in laundry and dry cleaning. What's that all about? Did our dry cleaning company increase their prices? Do we need to rebid that contract? If we're under contract, maybe we need to queue that up to at least shop that next time before we renew.
Maybe you are taking like towels and stuff and using them like.
Yeah, there's another one. I mean, maybe we're getting some pilferage.
I used to work at a restaurant that so like they had cut out repairs and maintenance for like 3 years. Like we only had like one working steamer and one working burner, and like the whole company is like starting to plummet right now.
Yeah.
And like we were allowed one towel. I used to work online. We were allowed one towel for the shift. And
Wow.
like because they couldn't make money or afford to send things off to the laundry and dry cleaning anymore.
Okay, now I don't know about you. I used to actually work behind the scenes at Quincy's doing all the desserts and everything else. One towel wouldn't even get it close. Wow. Yeah, so we need it. So again, this is the kind of stuff where you start to see the rubber meets the road. Because again, it's those kinds of things where if this stuff is allowed to continue and it's allowed to get out of hand, we may end up in a situation where our company is about to go out of business. Only because of some small little thing that has just sort of grown and just morphed into something tragic.
No, we can't. Because if you look at cost of food sold, it went up this year. So that means we have more flow within the business.
But the reason why this cost of food sold increase though is not a good thing is because it's disproportionate to the amount of increase in revenues. So we only had a 2.1% increase in total food sales. We should have had somewhere around a 2.1% increase in cost of food sold. However, there is one thing that might make that cost of food sold number okay. Does anybody remember the whole egg fiasco where all the eggs had salmonella and everything about a year ago-ish, year and a half, something like that, and the price of eggs went from like $1.99 a carton to like $5 a carton.
And there was like a point in time that like we couldn't even get like normal eggs in. Like we were having to buy like frozen eggs because we couldn't get fresh eggs in. So
Frozen eggs.
Yeah, they
You
come
never
in these
see
like
that
white
before?
bags and they're like already boiled and like diced for you, and like we would have to like set them out and thaw because we couldn't get normal eggs in. Yeah, it was disgusting.
Yeah, I was gonna say the idea of eating a thawed egg that cannot be good for the quality of it.
No, because it would turn like the yolk like into mush, and so
Yeah,
it was disgusting.
I bet.
So we
bet.
didn't get
Eggs is the
Yeah.
Aldi's, y'all.
Right? Okay, let's drop down to the fixed charges area. Okay? Anything jumping out at you on fixed charges?
Taxes.
Those property taxes. Well, 40% increase in property taxes. What is that all about?
Maybe they gotta pay extra for like keep up with the parking lot and maybe something.
No.
Property tax go up every year, especially if you're in Virginia.
Okay, but this is a good one to talk about. Now don't get me wrong. All Pat okay, but one of the things that absolutely drove me nuts when he ran for governor the first time was one of his advertisements said that the property tax rates in Charlotte-Mecklenburg County did not increase the whole entire time he was mayor. True or false?
I'm gonna go with false. No, I don't think you're just by the numbers.
No, that statement was actually true. The property tax rate did not change while he was in Charlotte-Mecklenburg County. The problem was back in somewhere around maybe like 2006, they came to us and they said, your house is worth 20% more than it was last year. So the valuation, there was a huge revaluation all over the county that jacked your property taxes up ridiculously. But the property tax rate did not change.
He must have knew that.
But the implication is that nobody's property taxes went up.
Well, that's
Yeah, that was really sneaky. And I really just,
Wait, it's not a
Right.
lie. It's like a half truth. It's more like
yeah.
deception. I feel like he just
Yeah, I mean, it really was. It really was. And I'm with you. It's really more of a half truth. It's like, okay, yes, that is true that the property tax rate did not change. However, the valuation of my property changed. So maybe this was a company in Charlotte back in 2006 when everybody got a big, massive property tax valuation change, right? But let me just say, that right there, the only other reason that I can think of that it might go up 40% is maybe we bought additional property that now needs to be taxed. Because if it's the same property, and now we've got a 40% increase on that same piece of property, remember, you can't get out of property taxes, right? You try not paying your property taxes, they'll put a lien on that thing, and you won't be able to sell it or do anything with it until it gets paid.
Is that different for your car though? Like, you know how you pay property tax for your car?
It is the same for your car.
But like, what if my car not on that property anymore?
Sorry, what if your car what?
Like, okay, say I pay property tax for Virginia, but my car not in Virginia anymore, it's here.
Right.
So like, say like if I stay here and I accidentally like mix a payment for property tax, like what would they do to me?
You would have to, well, let me say this. If you live in Virginia and that is your state of residence, then that's where your car needs
Yes,
to be
I
taxed.
paid there, but say like, okay, I plan on staying here for the summer, and I usually get my property tax papers over the summer. But say like I don't get home in time to pay it, like what would happen?
They would penalize you tremendously, so don't ever pay them late. But they can put a lien on the property. And if you ever attempt to to sell that car, they will go back and make sure that all the back taxes are
What
paid.
exactly like is a lien? Is that just like terminology for like all
A lien is an official document that is filed with the county in which the property is located. And when if you try to change the title of that property from one person to another or one business to another or anything like that, that lien is down at the county, and when they go to do a property tax search, they can go back and they can see that there are back taxes that have not been paid on that property, and that has to be settled first before the actual transaction can take place.
What happens if like she missed her property taxes and she sold her car cheap, and then they found out that property taxes weren't sold over that,
Then you get paid back property taxes.
well that sucks.
Yeah.
That's what
Okay?
that's what happened with my uncle. purchase trucks. But the prior owner had like buku taxes that he didn't pay on it because he stopped using the area. But instead of he just like not paying it off, he just let it rise up. But he tried to hurry up and sell it to my uncle. And at the time, I was working for the city for codes for property and stuff, and we pulled that up, and we found out that he was gonna be paying.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what happened. So property taxes are huge. Let's see. What about anything else popping out at you on this lower section?
Just pop the screen off. Time to go.
Are we done?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I got 5 minutes.
So that's 4 minutes.
Okay. Depreciation. This one went up pretty substantially, but also understand when we're talking about depreciation, that just depends on what depreciation method we choose as to what affects that a lot. And we're going to get into different depreciation methods in a later chapter. Other things to look at as well is we've got a 20% increase in income taxes with a 31% decrease in income before income taxes. So the taxable income went down, taxes went up. It's like, what the heck is that all about? So we've definitely got some issues, some timing differences on what's going on taxable income versus financial statement income. Okay? But you get in the feel for this, you gotta stop and you gotta think. One, within the current year, is it correct? So things like the 2.1% increase in the food sales should have only increased our cost of food sold by somewhere around 2.1. So within the current year, was it good or bad? Then you compare across time, so what happened last year, what happened this year, what's changed, and then we can decide on whether or not everything's going okay. Then again, it's internal analysis, so it's last year versus this year, or it's internal analysis, current year versus budget, right? So keep that big picture view in mind. We go internal, current year okay, compare it to budget, we're still internal, is it okay? Then we can even go external. So we can go to the hospitality industry standards and say, how are our standards compared to what they recommend, right?
We saved money here, but we made less money.
Correct. And think about also what happened. We started off with a 2.1% increase in sales, but we made 37.1% less in net income.
So it is.
Well, the reason why that happens is that overall increase that we started with in revenues was eaten up by all these increases in these expenses.
And also the what we can sell.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. We had an increase in sales, so we are selling more product. It's just the cost of selling that product is increasing more than the revenues that are increasing.
Quite interesting that I can figure this out in percentages. I can do that no problem at all.
Yeah.
Just the first one we did.
Yeah.
I was like looking at a blank screen.
Yeah. We're going to go over 2 more chapters that have a lot of ratios and things in them. So we're going to continue to analyze balance sheets and income statements to get an idea of what's the explanation of what's going on. And again, in my eyes, this is where this gets fun and interesting. All right. Have a good one.